What is up YouTube, Skiz1 here. Welcome to a video that's a little bit different than my usual content where I'm going to be explaining a few of the techniques I use specifically to work on my can control and improve my graffiti technique. Now I'm not by any means trying to say that I'm the world's best or a top class graffiti artist by any means, but I have been doing this for about a decade, and over that time I've improved through a lot of practice and development of a good base knowledge of can control technique and artistic concepts. So I hope I can answer some of the questions that I get asked a lot by people on the channel here looking for some graph advice. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to be very clear about is that this is a scrap can piece to use up some old cans of all different brands. I'm painting the letter S, so you won't see any technical shading in this piece because of that. Secondly, I'm working on a piece of polytarpaulin for a reason. Polytarp is one of the most repellent surfaces of liquids in general, so if you can make a piece on here not drip and actually look good, especially with say chrome paint, you will have some super clean pieces when you take it to the real walls for sure. So it's a great method of practice to improve. So right now I'm doing the initial design lines, aka the first lines as you may have heard them called, and I am working from this sketch on screen, just so you know. The most important thing with this step is to pay attention to proportions, just like you did when making the sketch, if you're using one that is. Feel free to put marker lines in places at the start of the piece so that you know where you want parts of the letters to start and end. Also, just a pro tip with Skiz here, for any of the newer writers out there, use a skinny cap for this part. You will save some of your paint for sure. Also, feel free to use another color to erase, ideally one that's close to the background color, but again, this is a scrap can piece, so you can use that color to erase or even to emphasize certain things in the structure of the piece that you will want to stand out later and you don't want to forget about. The fill in here was a little bit tricky with the chrome on this surface specifically, and of course running out of these colors means no cutbacks after the outline, sadly. Normally, of course, I would be doing some cutbacks on something like this. For me, I put a bit less focus on how I fill in smaller areas and try to pay more attention to spraying within the inner dimensions of the piece. For large spaces, I use the standard back and forth spray pattern, of course. Blending with these colors on a not completely flat surface obviously isn't ideal, but I managed. Of course, in the fill-in, I'm trying to pay attention to balance. I'm trying to balance this, albeit strange color schemes, so that it at least carries equal weight, even if the colors don't contrast particularly well due to the scrap candidness of them, I can say. Skipping ahead a little bit here to the outline, I'm using a standard universal outliner cap for my outlines. For my outlines, I actually sort of think of it the same way as outlining a sketch with a marker. I try to make sure each line is one singular continuous stroke instead of doing those choppy lines that really bring down the cleanliness of the piece. It's important to remember here that if your lines are a bit off, you still do have the 3D and the background and the highlights to cover and reproportion the piece a bit without losing any of that cleanliness. For the 3D, even on walls, I add a perspective dot to help with direction, and you can actually see that I actually reference it physically with my hand and arm before making a directional 3D line towards the perspective dot to sort of help me know where it is. I actually do the whole 3D fill in with the skinny cap, usually just to give it a bit of extra form and emphasize the lines and directional flow of the piece. So again, no cutbacks on this piece since it is a scrap can piece. I know this was very brief in the explanations. This is sort of an example of the type of stuff I'm looking to produce more on my Patreon. If anyone is interested in that, feel free to check it out. First link in the description. And let me know if this is a type of graffiti video you want me to continue on my channel here. You can really see how much my can control specifically has improved if you take a look at an older painting video on screen now, just by practicing on a surface like this, which forces you to be really vigilant with the spray can. Say hi in the comments. Peace.